Sarah's hands trembled as she pushed open the diner door, her 3-year-old twins clinging to her legs. Through the window, she'd watched the bearded biker devour his meal alone, and now desperation overrode every instinct, screaming at her to run. Her voice cracked as she approached his table. "Excuse me, sir. I'm so sorry to bother you, but when you're finished, could we have what's left on your plate?" The man's scarred hands stopped mid-bite. His eyes, hidden behind dark sunglasses even indoors, turned toward her. The entire diner fell silent. What happened next would change 5 lives forever. If this story grabs your attention, please subscribe to our channel and stay with us until the very end. Drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's continue. Sarah Mitchell hadn't eaten in 2 days. The twins, Lily and Lucas, hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Half a gas station muffin split between them while Sarah pretended she wasn't hungry. The lie tasted worse than the hunger. The Arizona sun had beaten down on them mercilessly as they'd walked the last 6 miles to this roadside diner after their 2004 Honda finally gave up on life. Sarah's feet were blistered, her throat raw from thirst, and her arms ached from carrying one child and then the other when their little legs gave out. But it was the shame that hurt most. The crushing, suffocating shame of standing in front of a stranger and begging for scraps. The biker didn't move at first. He just stared at her from behind those impenetrable sunglasses, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. His leather vest bore patches Sarah didn't understand. A skull with wings, words in Gothic script, a desert landscape. His arms were covered in tattoos that disappeared beneath rolled-up sleeves. A thick beard, more gray than black, covered half his face. Sarah's stomach dropped. She'd made a terrible mistake. "I'm sorry," she stammered, backing up, pulling the twins closer. "I shouldn't have. We'll just go. I'm sorry." "Wait." The word wasn't loud, but it stopped her cold. The biker set down his fork with deliberate care and pushed his sunglasses up onto his head. His eyes were blue, unexpectedly, shockingly blue, and they held something Sarah hadn't seen directed at her in years. Kindness. "How long since they ate?" he asked, nodding toward Lily and Lucas. Sarah's throat closed. She couldn't speak, couldn't admit out loud what kind of mother let her babies go hungry. "Mama," Lucas whispered, tugging her shirt. "My tummy hurts." The biker's jaw tightened. He raised his hand, and Sarah flinched, old reflexes dying hard. But he was only signaling the waitress, a tired-looking woman in her 50s who'd been watching the scene with obvious discomfort. "Denise," the biker called, "3 more of everything I ordered, and make it quick." "Jack, honey, I can't just—" "Put it on my tab. Triple it if you have to. These kids need to eat now, not in 20 minutes. Denise's expression softened. "All right, sugar, coming right up." Jack, so that was his name, stood up, and Sarah instinctively stepped back. He was massive, easily 6'3", with shoulders that had clearly seen decades of hard labor. But his movements were slow, careful, like he was trying not to spook a wounded animal. Which, Sarah supposed, wasn't far from the truth. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the booth across from his. "Please." Sarah hesitated. Every survival instinct she'd developed over the past 5 years screamed at her to grab the kids and run. Men who seemed nice always had an angle, always wanted something. David had taught her that lesson with his fists. But Lily's little hand squeezed hers, and Lucas let out a small whimper. And Sarah's maternal desperation overrode her fear. She sat. Jack reclaimed his own seat and pushed his plate, still heaping with bacon, eggs, hash browns, and toast, across the table toward them. "Start with this," he said. "More's coming." "We can't." "You can, and you will." His voice was firm, but not unkind. "When's the last time you ate, Mama?" Sarah flinched at the title. She didn't feel like anyone's mama right now. She felt like a failure. "That's what I thought," Jack said quietly. He broke off a piece of toast and handed it to Lucas, whose eyes went wide with desperate hunger. "Go ahead, little man. It's yours." Lucas looked at Sarah for permission. She nodded, and he snatched the toast like someone might take it away, cramming it into his mouth with both hands. Lily followed suit, and within seconds both children were eating with the frantic energy of the truly starving. Sarah's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. Not here. Not in front of this stranger who was showing her more compassion than she deserved. "Thank you," she managed. You don't have to do this." "Yeah, I do." Jack leaned back, crossing his arms. "I got kids. Twins, actually. Girls. They're 12 now, live with their mama in California." Sarah looked up sharply. A biker with kids. Joint custody, apparently. The world kept surprising her today. "How old are yours?" Jack asked. 3. They turned 3 in February. "Good age. Old enough to have personalities, young enough to still think you hung the moon." A sad smile crossed his face. "Enjoy it while it lasts." Denise arrived with 2 plates piled high with pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon, and fresh fruit. The smell made Sarah's stomach cramp so badly she had to grip the edge of the table. "Eat," Jack commanded. "You can't take care of them if you're running on empty." Sarah wanted to protest, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity, but her body betrayed her. She picked up a fork and took a bite of eggs, and it was like her entire system came roaring back to life. She had to force herself to eat slowly, to not make herself sick. Jack watched them eat without saying anything, occasionally sipping his coffee. It should have been uncomfortable, being watched like that, but somehow it wasn't. He wasn't leering or judging. He was just there. Present. Solid. After a few minutes, when the children had slowed down enough to breathe between bites, Jack spoke again. "Where you headed?" Sarah stiffened. The question felt loaded, dangerous. "Phoenix," she lied. "My sister lives there." Jack's expression said he knew it was a lie, but he didn't call her on it. "That's about 60 miles northeast. How you planning to get there?" "We'll figure something out." "With no car and no money?" Sarah's fork clattered against her plate. "How do you—" "Saw you walk in from the highway. Saw the blisters on your feet and the sunburn on your shoulders. Saw how you counted out change before you came in here, then put it back in your pocket when you realized it wasn't enough." Jack's voice remained neutral, factual. "I'm not trying to make you feel bad, Mama. I'm trying to understand what kind of help you need." "I don't need help," Sarah said automatically, then immediately felt foolish. She was literally eating food this stranger had bought her. "Okay," Jack said easily. "Then let me rephrase. I'm offering help. Whether you take it or not is your call." Lucas tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mama, my feet hurt." She looked down and saw blood seeping through his worn sneakers. They'd walked too far, way too far for little legs. Fresh guilt crashed over her. "Let me see, baby," she said, reaching for his foot. "Not here," Jack interrupted. "Denise, can we get a first aid kit?" "Sure thing, Jack." Denise disappeared behind the counter. Jack pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking in low tones. Sarah caught fragments. "2 kids. Need transport." "Yeah, the compound. 20 minutes." When he hung up, he looked at Sarah directly. "My garage is about 15 miles from here. I can fix your car, assuming it's fixable. If it's not, I can get you a loaner until you figure out your next move. You and the kids can stay in our guest quarters. Clean beds, hot showers, food in the kitchen. No cost, no strings. Sarah's hands started shaking. This was too much. Too generous. Nobody did this without wanting something. What do you want from me? The question came out harsh, defensive. Jack didn't flinch. Nothing. But I know that look in your eyes. I've seen it before. Someone's got you running scared, and you're so used to being hurt that kindness feels like a trap. Sarah's breath caught. How did he know? How could he possibly? I help people, Jack continued. It's what my club does. We're veterans, most of us. We've seen things, done things, and we came home broken. This, he gestured vaguely, helping folks who've got nowhere else to turn. It helps us remember we're still human, still capable of doing something good. Your club? Sarah's voice was small. Desert Riders MC. We're a motorcycle club. But we're not what you're thinking. We're not criminals. We're just guys who found each other when the VA gave up on us. Jack pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. That's our website. You can look us up while you decide if you trust me or not. Sarah picked up the card with trembling fingers. The logo matched the patch on Jack's vest, a motorcycle silhouette against a desert sunset with an American flag in the background. Why? The question was almost inaudible. Why would you do this for strangers? Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried old pain. Because 10 years ago, I was right where you are. Broken down on the side of the road, out of money, out of options. And nobody stopped. Nobody helped. I spent 3 nights sleeping in my truck before I finally got desperate enough to steal food for my girls. He met her eyes, and Sarah saw the raw honesty there. No performance, no manipulation, just truth. I got caught, Jack continued. Spent 6 months in county. Lost custody of my daughters for 2 years. By the time I got them back, they barely knew me. His jaw clenched. I swore if I ever got the chance, I'd be the person who stopped, who helped. So yeah, Mama, I'm that person today. For you and your babies. Lily, who'd been quietly eating her pancakes, suddenly spoke up. Are you a good guy or a bad guy? Jack's hard expression cracked into a genuine smile. That's a real good question, sweetheart. I've been both at different times in my life. But today, I'm trying real hard to be a good guy. Lily considered this seriously, then held out her worn stuffed bunny. Mr. Hops thinks you're good. Something shifted in Jack's face. He took the bunny with surprising gentleness, examining it with exaggerated care. Well, Mr. Hops looks like an excellent judge of character. What do you think, Mr. Hops? Should we trust this guy? He held the bunny to his ear as if listening, and Lily giggled, the first moment of pure joy Sarah had seen from her daughter in weeks. Mr. Hops says yes, Jack declared, handing the bunny back. But only if your mama agrees. 3 pairs of eyes turned to Sarah, her children looking at her with desperate hope, and Jack looking at her with patient understanding and absolutely no pressure. She thought about the alternative, walking back out to the highway with 2 exhausted, hurting children, trying to hitchhike with no phone, no money, no protection, hoping whoever stopped would be safe, knowing the odds of that were slim at best, or maybe, just maybe, trusting the scarred, tattooed biker who'd fed her children without asking for anything in return. Okay, Sarah whispered. Okay, but just until the car's fixed. Jack nodded. Just until the car's fixed. A rumble outside announced the arrival of another motorcycle. Through the window, Sarah saw a Hispanic woman with silver-streaked black hair dismounting a massive Harley. She wore the same leather vest as Jack, her arms covered in intricate tattoos. "That's Maria," Jack explained. "She's our club secretary and the closest thing we have to a mom. She's got a soft spot for kids." Maria walked in, assessed the situation with one sweep of her dark eyes, and immediately focused on the twins. "Ay, mira estos angelitos," she crooned, crouching down to their level. "Look at you beautiful babies. You been on an adventure, yes?" Lucas nodded shyly. "We walked a really long way." "You did? You must be so brave and strong." Maria looked up at Sarah with knowing eyes. "I'm Maria Vasquez. Jack tells me you need a safe place to land for a minute." "I'm Sarah. This is Lily and Lucas." "Beautiful names for beautiful children." Maria stood, her expression turning serious. "Sarah, I was you 15 years ago. Different situation, same desperation. These men," she gestured to Jack, "they saved my life. Let them save yours." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She wasn't alone. Hadn't been the first, wouldn't be the last. Something in her chest, something that had been clenched tight for years, began to loosen. "Let's go home," Maria said gently. "Jack's bike has a sidecar. He built it for his girls. The babies can ride there. You can ride with me. Sound good?" Sarah looked at her children, who were eyeing the motorcycles through the window with wide-eyed wonder. She looked at Jack, who was paying the check without fanfare. She looked at Maria, whose eyes held the wisdom of someone who'd walked this road before, and then she looked at the highway beyond, stretching endlessly toward a horizon that held nothing but more running, more fear, more hunger. "Okay," she said again, stronger this time. "Let's go." Jack helped load the twins into the sidecar, buckling them in with practiced ease. They squealed with delight as he handed them child-sized helmets. "Always got spares for when my girls visit," he explained, and showed them how to hold on tight. Sarah climbed onto the back of Maria's bike, her arms wrapping around the older woman's waist. "First time?" Maria called over the engine's roar. "Yes!" "Then hold on, mija, and trust me. I've never dropped a passenger yet." The bikes roared to life, and Sarah's stomach lurched as they pulled onto the highway. But as the wind whipped through her hair and the sun warmed her back, she realized something stunning. For the first time in 5 years, she wasn't afraid. The compound appeared after 20 minutes of riding through increasingly desolate desert landscape. Sarah had expected something rough, maybe a few trailers and some broken-down bikes. What she saw instead made her breath catch. A sprawling property surrounded by a neat fence, with several well-maintained buildings arranged around a central courtyard. A vegetable garden flourished on one side, a children's playground stood on the other, and an American flag snapped in the wind from a tall pole in the center. Half a dozen motorcycles were parked in organized rows, and several people were visible working on various projects. It looked like a community, a home. "Welcome to Desert Riders MC," Maria announced as they pulled up to the gate. "Population, 12 full-time residents, another 20 or so who drift in and out. All veterans except me, and they made an exception for this stubborn old woman." A man in his 30s approached as they dismounted. He had kind eyes and a prosthetic left leg visible below his shorts. "Tommy Doc Martinez," he introduced himself, offering Sarah his hand. "Army medic, retired. Jack says your little one's got some blisters that need tending?" Before Sarah could respond, Jack had the twins out of the sidecar. Lucas was limping badly now, and Lily's face was scrunched up, trying not to cry. "Let's get them to the clinic," Tommy said, his voice shifting into professional mode. Sarah, you're welcome to come, or Maria can show you the guest quarters if you'd rather get cleaned up first. I'll come with them, Sarah said immediately. She'd been separated from her children enough for one lifetime. Of course. Tommy led them to a small building that had clearly been converted into a medical facility. It was clean, organized, and stocked with supplies that would make some hospitals jealous. We get a lot of guys with service-related injuries coming through, Tommy explained, as he gently removed Lucas's shoes. The boy whimpered. Plus, some of the folks we help have been through rough situations. Good to have medical care on site. As Tommy worked, cleaning and bandaging the children's feet with expert care, other members of the compound drifted by the open door. A grizzled man in his 60s with a Vietnam patch on his vest. A woman in her 40s with laugh lines and sad eyes. A young guy, maybe 25, with burn scars covering half his face. All of them waved or nodded to the twins. All of them smiled. There we go, little man, Tommy said, finishing with Lucas. Good as new. Well, almost. You're going to want to stay off these feet for a day or two, okay? That means lots of sitting and playing quiet games. But I want to play on the playground, Lucas protested. Tell you what, tomorrow, if those blisters look better, I'll give you a piggyback ride out there myself. Deal? Deal. As Tommy moved to treat Lily, Jack appeared in the doorway. Guest house is ready. Rosa made up the beds and stocked the kitchen. Sarah, you want to get settled, or you want to see the garage first? Check out your car situation. Sarah wanted to see her car, her escape route, her only asset, her last shred of independence. But the twins were drooping with exhaustion, despite their excitement, and she was barely staying upright herself. Can it wait until tomorrow? Course it can. Come on, let's get you home. Home. The word felt foreign on her tongue, but Jack said it so naturally, like it was already decided that this place would be, temporarily at least, exactly that. The guest house was a small cottage at the edge of the property, separate from the main buildings, but close enough to feel connected. Inside, it was simple, but comfortable. 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a small kitchen and living area. Everything was clean, and as promised, the kitchen was stocked with basic supplies. But it was the little details that made Sarah's throat close up. Child-safe locks on the cabinets, a basket of toys in the corner, children's toothbrushes still in packages on the bathroom counter, a nightlight in each bedroom. Someone had done this deliberately, thoughtfully, for them. Rosa handles most of the domestic stuff around here, Jack explained. She's one of us, Marine Corps vet, 3 deployments, has grandkids of her own, loves any excuse to mother people. She'll probably drop by tomorrow with more food than you can possibly eat. I don't know how to thank you, Sarah said, her voice breaking. Don't thank me yet. Save it for when your car's fixed and you're back on your feet. Jack headed toward the door, then paused. Sarah, lock this door behind me. You're safe here, but lock it anyway. Whatever peace of mind that gives you, take it. He understood. Somehow, this scarred biker with the gentle eyes understood that safety wasn't just about locked doors. It was about the choice to lock them yourself. Jack? Sarah called as he stepped outside. Why do you all do this? Really? He was quiet for a moment, silhouetted against the setting sun. Because guys like us, we've done a lot of things we're not proud of. In the service, after the service, during the years we were trying to figure out how to be human again. This, he gestured around the compound, this is how we make it right. One person at a time. After he left, Sarah locked the door and turned to find both twins already crashed on the couch, asleep despite the early evening hour. She carried them one by one to the bedroom, tucked them into the clean sheets, and kissed their foreheads. Then she walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stepped under the hot water, fully clothed. She stood there until the water ran cold, washing away 2 days of highway dust and 5 years of accumulated fear. When she finally emerged, stripped down, and climbed into the other bed, she expected the usual nightmares. The ones where David found them, where he dragged them back, where she wasn't fast enough or strong enough to protect her babies. But that night, for the first time since she'd fled, Sarah Mitchell slept dreamlessly. She woke to sunlight streaming through clean windows and the sound of her children laughing. Actual, genuine laughter. She stumbled out of bed, heart pounding, and found them in the small living room, playing with a wooden truck that definitely hadn't been there last night. A soft knock sounded at the door. Sarah checked the peephole, another new habit, and saw a stout woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Buenos dias," the woman called. "I'm Rosa. I brought breakfast, and I'm not leaving until you eat every bite." Sarah opened the door to find Rosa balancing multiple grocery bags. The smell of fresh pastries made her stomach growl audibly. "You must be Sarah," Rosa said, bustling past without waiting for invitation. "And these precious babies. Jack told me they were beautiful, but he undersold it." She set the bags on the counter and immediately began unpacking. "I've got fresh bread, eggs, fruit, milk for the niños, and my famous cinnamon rolls because everyone deserves something sweet." "You didn't have to. See, I know. Nobody has to do anything. But we do it anyway because that's what family does." Rosa fixed Sarah with a knowing look. "And before you say you're not family, let me save you the breath. You're here, you're safe, and you're eating my cooking. That makes you family. Now sit." Sarah sat, overwhelmed by this force of nature in a flour-dusted apron. As Rosa cooked, she talked about the compound, the members, the rules. No drugs, no fighting, everyone contributes somehow. And the mission. We help people who fall through the cracks. She talked about her own history in the Marines, about losing her son to an IED in Afghanistan, about finding purpose again with these broken, beautiful men who needed someone to remind them they were worth saving. "And Jack?" Rosa said, cracking eggs into a pan. "Jack is the best of us. That man has been to hell 3 times over, and somehow he came back kinder each time. When he says you're safe here, you're safe here. Entiendes?" "I understand," Sarah whispered. "Good." Rosa plated up breakfast with the efficiency of someone who'd fed crowds. "Now eat, and then Jack's gonna look at your car. And whatever happens, whatever you need, you tell me. I've been where you are, mija. We all have, one way or another." The breakfast was the best thing Sarah had tasted in years. As she ate, watching her children happily demolish cinnamon rolls, she felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. An hour later, Jack arrived to take her to the garage. Maria offered to watch the twins. "They can help me in the garden, learn where vegetables come from." And Sarah, after only a moment's hesitation, agreed. The garage was a large metal building at the far end of the compound, and inside it looked like every mechanic's dream. Tools organized on pegboards, multiple vehicles in various states of repair, the smell of oil and metal and hard work. Sarah's Honda was already there, hood up, Jack's legs visible underneath. "How'd you get it here?" Sarah asked. Jack rolled out on a creeper, his face and hands smeared with grease. "Had Tommy tow it last night after you went to sleep. Wanted to take a look before I gave you the news." Sarah's stomach dropped. "Bad?" "Depends on your definition of bad." Jack stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "Engines blown, transmissions shot. Even if I could fix it, which I probably could, It'd cost more than the car's worth, and she'd just die on you again in another 100 miles. Sarah's vision blurred. Her car. Her only way out. Her only asset. Gone. Hey, Jack's voice gentled. It's okay. We've got a solution. What solution? I don't have money. I can't pay you. I can't. Sarah, look at me. Jack waited until she met his eyes. I've got a truck. 2003 Toyota, bulletproof engine, runs like a dream. It's been sitting in storage because I've got more vehicles than I need. I'm giving it to you. Sarah's brain couldn't process the words. Giving? Signing the title over, free and clear. Only condition is you drive safe and you keep the oil changed. I can't accept that. That's too much. That's exactly what you need. Jack's voice was firm. Sarah, I'm not stupid. You're running from something. Someone. I'm not going to ask who or what because that's your story to tell if and when you want to. But I know that whatever you're running from, you need to be able to keep running if necessary. Sarah's knees nearly buckled. He knew. He understood. And he wasn't trying to trap her or control her or force her to stay. He was giving her the one thing she needed most. Freedom. Why? The question came out broken. Why would you do this for someone you don't even know? Jack's expression turned distant, haunted. I told you I spent time in jail, right? What I didn't tell you is why. I got caught stealing formula and diapers from my girls. But before I got caught, I spent 3 nights in a Walmart parking lot, sitting in my truck, trying to convince myself to go in and steal what they needed. And you know how many people walked past my truck? How many people saw me with 2 toddlers, clearly in trouble, clearly desperate? Sarah shook her head. 47. Jack's voice was flat. I counted 47 people who looked away, crossed to the other side of the parking lot, pretended they didn't see. That's what people do, Sarah. They look away because helping is hard and messy and complicated. But being the 48th person, the one who stops, that's how you live with yourself. He pulled a set of keys from his pocket and pressed them into her hand. The truck's out back. Take it for a test drive. Make sure it's right for you and the kids. And if you decide you need to leave tonight, tomorrow, next week, you go. No questions asked. You don't owe me anything except to do the same for someone else someday when you can. Sarah stared at the keys in her hand. They felt impossibly heavy, weighted with a kindness she'd forgotten existed in the world. Jack, Go test drive the truck, he interrupted gently. We'll talk more later. Right now, you need to know you've got options. That's the first step to everything else. Sarah walked on numb legs to the back of the garage where a dark blue Toyota Tacoma sat, clean and well-maintained. She climbed in, started the engine, and heard it purr to life like Jack had promised. She sat there for a long moment, hands on the wheel, mind spinning. She could leave right now. Grab the twins, drive away, never look back. These people had already given her everything she needed to disappear again. But for the first time since she'd fled her marriage, Sarah wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was done running. Maybe it was time to stand still, to heal, to let her children be children, to remember what it felt like to be human instead of hunted. She turned off the engine, pocketed the keys, and walked back to find Jack. Well, he asked. It's perfect, she said. But I'm not leaving yet. If the offer still stands to stay a while, just until I figure out my next move, I'd like to accept. Something like relief crossed Jack's face.
The offer stands as long as you need it.
And I want to help. I can't just take without giving something back. I'm good with numbers. I can cook. We'll find you something, Jack assured her. Nobody rides free around here. Everyone contributes what they can. But today, you rest. Tomorrow, we'll talk about how you fit into the community. Community. Family. Home. Words Sarah had thought she'd lost forever. As she walked back to the guest house to find her children, Sarah felt the weight of 5 years of fear beginning to lift from her shoulders. She wasn't naive. She knew this fragile peace couldn't last forever. Eventually, she'd have to deal with the reality of her situation. Eventually, David might find them. But today, her children were safe. They were fed. They were laughing. And maybe, just for today, that was enough. She found Lily and Lucas in the garden with Maria, their small hands muddy as they helped plant seeds.
They looked up when she approached, their faces bright with joy.
"Mama, we're growing tomatoes," Lucas announced. "And carrots," Lily added. "Maria says we can water them every day."
Sarah knelt beside them, pulling them both into a hug.
"That sounds wonderful, babies. Are we staying here, Mama?"
Lily asked, her voice small and hopeful.
"Please, can we stay?"
Sarah met Maria's eyes over her daughter's head. The older woman nodded, understanding passing between them without words.
"Yes, baby,"
Sarah said, surprised by the certainty in her own voice.
"We're staying for a while. Is that okay?"
Both children erupted in cheers, and Sarah let their joy wash over her. Behind her, unnoticed, Jack leaned against the garage door, watching the small family in his garden. His phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. Sarah's car was tampered with, not a natural death. Someone wanted it to fail. Want me to dig? Jack typed back, "Not yet, but keep your eyes open."
If someone's hunting her, we need to know before they find her. He deleted the message thread and pocketed his phone. Then he walked back into the garage to finish the work that never ended. Because Sarah Mitchell might think she was safe now, but Jack had been around long enough to know the truth. The most dangerous time for a woman leaving an abusive relationship was right after she left. And if someone was looking for Sarah and her twins, Jack and his brothers would make damn sure they never found them. The hunt was over for Sarah, but for Jack, it was just beginning. The first 3 days passed in a blur of small kindnesses that felt like miracles. Sarah woke each morning expecting to find it had all been a dream, but there was always coffee brewing in the kitchen, Rosa's doing, and the sound of her children laughing outside. Lily and Lucas had taken to the compound like they'd been born to it, racing between the garden and the playground with the other children who drifted through, kids of members or visitors or people passing through on their way to somewhere safer. On the 4th morning, Jack knocked on the door at 7 sharp.
"Time to earn your keep," he said, but his eyes were smiling. "We've got bookkeeping that's about 6 months behind, and Rosa tells me you mentioned being good with numbers." Sarah followed him to the main building, a converted warehouse that served as office, meeting hall, and common area. Inside, she found chaos. Receipts stuffed in shoeboxes, invoices scattered across a desk, a computer that looked like it hadn't been updated since 2010. "Tommy handles our finances, but he's better with bullet wounds than spreadsheets," Jack admitted. "We're legit. Pay taxes, file paperwork, the whole deal. We just suck at organizing it." Sarah sat down at the desk and started sorting.
Within an hour, she'd created a system. Within 2 hours, she'd identified 3 unpaid invoices that were past due. By lunch, she had a preliminary budget worked out that made Jack whistle low. "You're seriously undercharging for your mechanical work," she told him, pointing at the screen.
You could raise your rates by 20% and still be competitive. We charge what people can afford, Jack said. That's noble, but you can't help anyone if you go bankrupt. Sarah pulled up another screen. What if you charged full price to people who can pay it and used that profit to subsidize the ones who can't? You'd still help the same people, but you'd also build a financial cushion for emergencies. Jack stared at her. You do this professionally? I used to. Before... Sarah stopped. She wasn't ready to talk about before. I worked as a bookkeeper for a small business. It wasn't much, but I was good at it. You're hired, Jack said immediately. 20 hours a week. Whatever schedule works with the kids. We'll pay you. You're already paying me in housing and food, and we'll pay you, Jack repeated firmly. Everyone who works gets paid. That's the rule. Nobody's a charity case here. The word hit Sarah wrong. Charity case. That's exactly what she was. What she'd always be. Someone who needed rescuing, who couldn't make it on her own, who... Hey! Jack's voice cut through her spiral. I see that look. That's shame talking. And shame's a liar. You think Maria doesn't get paid for the cooking she does? Or Tommy for the medical care? Or Razor for the maintenance work? Everyone contributes what they can. Everyone gets compensated for it. That's how communities work. That's how we survive. Sarah's throat tightened. I don't know how to accept this. Start by saying thank you and meaning it. Thank you. And she did mean it. The words felt strange in her mouth, unfamiliar but not unwelcome. Jack nodded. Good. Now I've got a bike to rebuild. You've got about 6 more boxes of receipts to sort through. Rosa's watching the twins at the main house if you want to check on them during your break. He left, and Sarah turned back to the computer. For the first time in 5 years, she had a job. A real job. Something that was hers, something that mattered, something that made her feel human instead of hunted. She worked until her eyes burned, until she'd created order from chaos, until she heard small footsteps thundering toward the office.
Mama! Mama!
Lucas burst through the door, Maria close behind, looking apologetic.
Mama, there's puppies, baby puppies, and they're so tiny, and Maria says maybe we can... Slow down, baby, Sarah laughed, catching him as he crashed into her legs. What's this about puppies? One of our members breeds service dogs, Maria explained. German shepherds. She brought a new litter by to socialize them. Your two have been very gentle, very good. Can we have one?
Lily appeared behind Lucas, her eyes enormous with hope.
Please, Mama, please. I'll take care of it and walk it and feed it and...
We can't afford, Sarah started, then stopped. Old reflexes, old fears. They lived here now. Things were different. Let me think about it, okay? That's a big responsibility.
I'm responsible, Lucas insisted. I'm very responsible.
The earnestness in his voice made Sarah's heart crack open. 3 years old and already worried about proving his worth. Already learning that love came with conditions. I know you are, baby, but let's wait a little bit, okay? We're still settling in. The disappointment on their faces made her want to take it back, to give them everything they wanted. But Maria caught her eye and gave a subtle nod. The right call. Kids needed boundaries, needed stability, needed to learn that not every want could be immediately satisfied. Come on, chiquititos, Maria said, herding them toward the door. Let's go make lunch. You can help me make tortillas. After they left, Sarah sat back in her chair and pressed her palms against her eyes. A puppy. Her children wanted a puppy. Such a normal thing, such an ordinary childhood desire, and she'd almost said no out of pure habit. She was still sitting there when Tommy stuck his head in the door. Hey, Sarah, got a minute? Sure, what's up? Tommy came in and closed the door behind him, his expression serious. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Are you running from someone? Sarah's blood went cold. Why do you ask? Because your car didn't just break down. Tommy pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. This is your fuel line. Someone cut it. Not all the way through, that'd be too obvious. Just enough that it'd fail after about 50, 60 miles of driving. The room tilted. Sarah gripped the edge of the desk. That's not possible. Nobody knew we were leaving. I didn't tell anyone. I was so careful. I believe you, Tommy said quickly. But someone found out anyway. Someone who wanted your car to fail but didn't want it to look like sabotage. Someone who maybe thought you'd break down somewhere, isolated, where you'd have to call for help. David. The name tasted like poison. My husband. Ex-husband. We're not divorced yet, but does he have reason to come looking for you? Sarah's laugh was bitter. He told me if I ever tried to leave, he'd find me and kill me, and then he'd take the twins somewhere I'd never find them. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He meant it, Tommy. He's done it before. To his first wife. She disappeared 6 years ago. Everyone said she ran away, but I know he... Tommy's jaw tightened. Did you report this to the police? With what proof? He's careful. He's smart. And he's got friends in the sheriff's department back home. Sarah's hands were shaking now. I thought I was being paranoid. I thought maybe the car just broke down naturally. But if you're right, if he did this, then he knows which direction I was heading. He knows. Hey, breathe. Tommy pulled up a chair. You're safe here. That's first and most important. But we need to tell Jack. We need to put everyone on alert. No. The word came out sharp. If I tell Jack, if everyone knows, then I become a problem, a liability. He'll ask me to leave because I'm putting everyone in danger. Sarah, stop. Tommy's voice was firm but kind. That's not how this works. That's not how Jack works. You think you're the first person who showed up here running from violence? You think we haven't dealt with angry exes and dangerous situations before? This is different. David's not... He's not just some angry drunk. He's methodical. He's patient. He's dangerous. I get it. Which is exactly why we need to know what we're dealing with. Tommy stood. I'm telling Jack, today. You can be there or not, but he needs to know. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to grab her children and run, wanted to disappear before she could be thrown out or before David could find them. But her body was exhausted from running. Her heart was exhausted from fear. And some small part of her, the part that had been growing stronger since she arrived here, wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face this alone. I'll tell him, she said quietly. Let me tell him. Tommy nodded. He's in the garage. Want me to come with you? No, I need to do this myself. The walk to the garage felt like walking to an execution. Sarah's mind raced through scenarios. Jack would ask her to leave. Or worse, he wouldn't ask. He'd just make it clear she wasn't welcome anymore. That she'd brought danger to his doorstep, threatened his community, betrayed his trust. She found him under a Harley, grease smeared across his forearm, completely absorbed in his work. For a moment, she almost turned around, almost ran, almost took the easy coward's way out. Instead, she cleared her throat. Jack rolled out from under the bike, his face lighting up when he saw her. Hey, how's the bookkeeping going? Find all my financial disasters yet? Jack, I need to talk to you about why I'm really here. His expression shifted instantly from friendly to serious. He stood, wiped his hands, and gestured to his small office at the back of the garage. Inside, he closed the door and waited, not pushing, just present. Sarah took a breath. My husband's name is David Mitchell. We were married 5 years ago. He seemed perfect at first, charming, successful, attentive. But after Lucas and Lily were born, things changed. He lost his job, started drinking, started getting angry about small things. Dishes in the sink, dinner not ready on time, the babies crying too much. Jack's hands clenched, but he didn't interrupt. The first time he hit me, he cried afterward. Said he was sorry, said it would never happen again. I believed him. Sarah's voice was flat, reciting facts like they belonged to someone else. But it did happen again, and again, until I stopped believing his apologies and started planning how to survive each day. Did you try to get help? Twice. The first time I went to the police, his best friend is a deputy. My report disappeared. The second time I went to a women's shelter. He found me within 6 hours, convinced them I was mentally unstable, that I'd taken his children without permission. They sent me home with him. Sarah met Jack's eyes. After that, I knew I had to be smarter. I had to wait for the right moment. What changed? 2 weeks ago, he hit Lucas. The words came out broken. Lucas spilled juice on David's laptop. It was an accident. He's 3 years old. But David backhanded him so hard he flew across the room, and I looked at my baby boy, crying on the floor with a bloody lip, and I knew if I didn't leave right then, one day David was going to kill one of us. Jack's face had gone stone cold, but his voice remained steady. So you left. I waited until he went to work, packed one bag, took the emergency cash I'd been hiding in the freezer, $300 saved over 2 years, got in the car and drove. I was heading to Phoenix, to my sister, but the car died 50 miles outside of Tucson. Sarah swallowed hard. Tommy looked at it today. David sabotaged the fuel line. He wanted me to break down, wanted me to be stranded and helpless, so I'd have to call him for help. But you didn't call him. I walked 6 miles to that diner instead. And then I met you. Silence filled the small office. Jack was thinking, processing, and Sarah braced herself for the rejection she knew was coming. Does David know where you are now? Jack finally asked. No, I don't think so. But Tommy thinks. Tommy's right. If David sabotaged your car, he's tracking you somehow. Jack pulled out his phone. Do you have your cell phone? I left it in Oklahoma. I'm not stupid. I know you're not. But there are other ways to track people. Credit cards, ATM withdrawals, social media, license plate readers. Jack was typing rapidly. We need to assume he knows you're somewhere in Arizona. We need to assume he's looking. And we need to be ready. Sarah's vision blurred. Jack, I can't ask you to. I'll leave. Tonight. I'll take the truck you gave me and I'll disappear and— No. The word was absolute. Jack set down his phone and looked at her directly. Sarah, I need you to hear me. Are you listening? She nodded, not trusting her voice. You're not leaving. You're not running. You're staying here, where you're safe, where your kids are safe, where we can protect you. His voice softened slightly. This is what we do. This is literally why this place exists. About 60% of the people who come through here are running from violence. We know how to handle this. But if he finds me, then he'll find 12 combat veterans standing between him and you. And trust me, that's not a fight he wants. Jack stood. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, we need information. I've got a friend who's a private investigator, used to be DEA. He can find out where David is, what he's doing, whether he's filed any kind of report about you and the kids.
I don't have money to pay, Sarah.
Jack's voice was gentle but firm.
Stop. Stop trying to figure out how to do this alone. You're part of this community now. That means when you've got a problem, we've got a problem. And we handle our problems together. The words broke something in Sarah. Something that had been holding her together through pure willpower and terror. She started crying, not pretty tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that felt like they'd been trapped in her chest for years. Jack didn't try to comfort her with touch. He just handed her a clean shop rag and waited while she cried herself out. I'm sorry, she finally managed. I'm sorry,
You're just dealing with 5 years of trauma that you've been holding back because you couldn't afford to fall apart. Jack's voice was matter-of-fact. Believe me, I get it. Every person here gets it. You want to know what I did the first week after I finally got sober? I cried in the shower every morning for 6 days straight. And that was after I was safe. That was after the danger was over. Your danger isn't over yet, so you're actually handling this better than I did. Sarah wiped her face with the rag.
What do we do now?
Now we call a family meeting. Get everyone on the same page. Set up a security protocol. Jack opened the office door, and we make sure your kids don't see you scared. Kids pick up on that. They need to see you strong, even if you're faking it.
I'm so tired of faking it.
I know, but you're good at it. You got your kids this far. You kept them alive and safe through 5 years of hell. So you can keep faking it a little longer, until you don't have to fake it anymore. The family meeting happened that evening after the twins were asleep. Sarah sat in the main hall surrounded by 12 hardened veterans, and instead of feeling afraid, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Protected. Jack laid out the situation without drama or exaggeration. Tommy showed the photos of the sabotaged fuel line. Maria added that she'd noticed a pickup truck with Oklahoma plates parked down the road yesterday, though it had left before she could get the full license number.
Could be coincidence, Maria said. But I don't believe in coincidences.
Neither do I, said Razor, the grizzled Vietnam vet. If this asshole is tracking her, he's probably doing surveillance, testing our security, seeing what he's up against. So we show him what he's up against, said a woman named Viper, her voice hard as steel. We make it real clear that Sarah and her kids are under protection. We make him think twice before he tries anything. Carefully, Jack warned. We can't do anything illegal. We can't give him ammunition to use against us or against Sarah. Everything we do has to be by the book. Then we call Rachel, Tommy suggested. Get the legal side handled. Restraining orders, custody documentation, everything official. Already did. Jack pulled out his phone. She's coming tomorrow. She's also bringing a friend who specializes in domestic violence cases. We're going to make sure Sarah has every legal protection available. Sarah listened to them planning her defense like she was a military objective. Part of her wanted to protest, to say she could handle it herself, but the truth was, she couldn't. She'd tried handling it herself for 5 years, and it had nearly killed her. Sarah? Jack's voice pulled her from her thoughts. You still with us?
I'm here. This is a lot.
I know, but here's what you need to understand. David might be smart, he might be patient, but he's also arrogant. He thinks you're helpless without him. He thinks you'll break down and beg him to take you back. Men like him always think that. Jack leaned forward. But you're not helpless. You're here, you're safe, and you've got a whole community ready to stand between him and your kids. That's not helpless. That's strength. He has rights, Sarah said quietly. Legally, he's their father. He could file for custody. He could... Rachel will handle the legal side, Jack assured her. But Sarah, you need to understand something. Courts don't look kindly on men who hit their kids. If we document what happened to Lucas, if we get medical records and witness statements—
There are no medical records. I was too scared to take him to the hospital.
Then we get them now, Tommy said. I'm a licensed RN. I can document the healing injuries. It's not as good as immediate evidence, but it's something.
And your sister in Phoenix, Maria added. Does she know what David did to you?
Some, not everything.
Can she testify on your behalf?
Sarah hesitated. Her sister Jessica had been urging her to leave for years, but they'd grown distant. David had made sure of that, slowly cutting off Sarah's contact with anyone who might help her.
Maybe. I haven't talked to her in over a year.
We'll call her, Jack decided. Tomorrow, with Rachel present. We're building a case, Sarah, a real case. We're not just hiding you. We're making sure that if this goes to court, you win. The meeting continued for another hour, with each member contributing ideas and resources. Razor would install additional security cameras. Viper would teach Sarah basic self-defense. Maria would homeschool the twins temporarily, keeping them on the compound where they'd be safe. Tommy would document every bruise, every scar, every piece of evidence Sarah carried on her body. By the time it ended, Sarah felt simultaneously overwhelmed and oddly calm. She wasn't alone anymore, wasn't fighting this battle by herself. And for the first time since she'd married David Mitchell, she allowed herself to believe that maybe she could actually win. Jack walked her back to the guest house under a sky full of stars. "You're quiet," he observed.
"I'm processing."
Sarah looked up at the constellations.
5 years I spent thinking I deserved what he did to me,
that I'd made bad choices and had to live with the consequences,
that if I just tried harder, loved him better, didn't make him angry.
Stop. Jack's voice was sharp. That's his voice in your head, not yours, and it's a lie.
I know that now. Intellectually, I know, but you don't feel it yet. I get it. Took me 3 years of therapy to stop believing I was worthless because my dad said it, and my drill sergeant said it, and my ex-wife said it.
Jack stopped walking.
Want to know what finally convinced me they were wrong?
What? My daughters. When they were 8, Emma, my older one by 3 minutes, asked me why I always said sorry for everything, why I apologized for existing. And I realized she was watching me, learning from me, learning that she should apologize for existing too. Jack's voice thickened. That was the day I decided I had to change. Not for me, for them, because they deserved a father who knew his own worth. Sarah understood perfectly.
I have to change for Lucas and Lily.
You have to change for you, Jack corrected gently. But yeah, they're a pretty good motivation. They reached the guest house, and Sarah paused at the door.
Jack, thank you for everything.
For believing me. For not making me prove I deserve help. Nobody has to prove that, Jack said. Everybody deserves help. That's just being human. He turned to leave, then stopped. Sarah, one more thing. That truck Maria saw. If it comes back, if anyone approaches you when you're outside the compound, you run. Don't talk to them. Don't try to reason with them. You run and you scream for help. Every single person here will come running. You understand? Sarah nodded, fear creeping back in.
Do you really think he's that close?
I think he's closer than we want him to be. But that's okay, because we're ready for him. After Jack left, Sarah checked on the twins. They were sleeping peacefully, their small bodies relaxed in a way they'd never been back in Oklahoma.
Lucas's lip had healed completely. Lily's nightmares had stopped. They were thriving here, blooming like flowers that had finally found good soil. Sarah wouldn't let David take this from them.
We'd let him drag them back to that house of fear and violence. She'd die first. But as she climbed into her own bed, she realized she didn't want to die. For the first time in years, she wanted to live, wanted to fight, wanted to build something new from the ashes of what she'd lost. And tomorrow, with Rachel's help and Jack's support and the entire Desert Riders community behind her, that's exactly what she'd start doing. Outside, in the darkness beyond the compound fence, a truck with Oklahoma plates idled on the access road. Inside, David Mitchell watched the lights go out in the guest house and smiled. He'd found them. Finally found them. And soon, very soon, he'd remind his wife exactly what happens to women who tried to leave him. He put the truck in gear and drove away, already planning his next move. The hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning. Rachel Chen arrived at 9 the next morning, driving a silver SUV with tinted windows and the determination that radiated off her like heat. She was 42, sharp-featured, with streaks of premature gray in her black hair that she wore like badges of honor. Behind her came a younger woman, carrying 2 briefcases and a laptop bag. "This is Amanda Porter," Rachel said, shaking Sarah's hand with a grip that meant business. "She specializes in family law and domestic violence cases. Between the two of us, we've gotten 73 women and their children safely away from abusers. You're number 74. Sarah's throat tightened. "What if I'm the one you can't save?" "You won't be." Rachel's voice left no room for argument. "But I need you to tell me everything, and I mean everything. No matter how embarrassing, no matter how shameful you think it makes you look. The truth is our weapon here, and I can't fight with half a blade." They sat in Jack's office with the door closed. Maria watched the twins outside, their laughter drifting through the window as they chased a butterfly through the garden. Normal, innocent. Everything Sarah was fighting to preserve. "Start from the beginning," Amanda said, opening her laptop. "How did you meet David?" Sarah took a breath and began. She told them about the charming man she'd met at a coffee shop 6 years ago, the whirlwind romance, the quick proposal. She told them about the first year of marriage when everything seemed perfect, when David treated her like a queen, when she thought she'd finally found the happiness her mother had always said she deserved. "When did it change?" Rachel asked. "I got pregnant. Twins. High-risk pregnancy." Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. "David was thrilled at first. Then I was put on bed rest. I couldn't work, couldn't contribute financially. He started making comments about how I was getting fat, how I wasn't trying hard enough to look good for him." "Verbal abuse," Amanda noted, typing. "Continue." "After the twins were born, I had postpartum depression. I was exhausted all the time, crying constantly. Couldn't figure out how to make them stop screaming. David said I was a terrible mother, said his mother raised 4 kids alone and never complained, said I was weak." Rachel's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice neutral. "When did the physical abuse start?" "Lucas was 6 months old. He wouldn't stop crying, and David had lost his job that week. He was drunk. He grabbed my arm and shook me, told me to shut the baby up or he'd do it himself." Sarah's voice dropped. "He left bruises. 5 of them. Perfect finger marks. I wore long sleeves for 2 weeks until they faded." "Did you document it? Take photos?" "No. I was too ashamed. I kept thinking it was my fault, that I'd pushed him too far, that if I'd just been a better wife— Stop. Rachel leaned forward. Sarah, look at me. Nothing you did caused this. Nothing you could have done would have prevented it. David is an abuser. That's who he is. It has nothing to do with you. Sarah wanted to believe her. God, she wanted to believe her. But 5 years of David's voice in her head made it hard to accept that truth. Tell us about the incident with Lucas, Amanda prompted gently. The one that made you leave. Sarah's hands started shaking. 2 weeks ago. David had been drinking since noon. He was angry about something at work, about not getting a promotion he thought he deserved. Lucas was playing in the living room with his trucks. He knocked over David's laptop. It was my fault. I should have moved it. I should have known. It wasn't your fault, Rachel interrupted. Go on. David backhanded him. Lucas flew across the room and hit the wall. His lip split open. There was blood everywhere. Sarah's voice broke. And David looked at me and said, "Clean him up. And if you ever tell anyone about this, I'll kill you and take the kids somewhere you'll never find them." Did Lucas need medical attention? Yes, but I was too scared to take him to the hospital. I used the first aid kit at home. His lip healed, but Sarah looked at Rachel desperately. I failed him. I should have taken him to the hospital. I should have reported it. But I was so scared that David would make good on his threat, that I'd lose them forever, that— You made the decision you needed to make to survive, Rachel said firmly. And then you made the brave decision to leave. That's what matters now. But Sarah, I need to know, did David ever hurt Lily? Not physically, but she saw him hit me. She saw him hurt Lucas. She has nightmares where she screams for Daddy to stop. Sarah wiped her eyes. That's abuse too, isn't it? What she witnessed. Absolutely, Amanda confirmed. Witnessing domestic violence is considered child abuse in Arizona. It's a factor courts take very seriously in custody cases. Rachel pulled out a folder. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we're filing for an emergency protection order. Arizona has strong DV laws. If we can demonstrate that David poses a credible threat, we can get an order that prevents him from coming within 500 feet of you or the children. He violated the last restraining order I tried to get, Sarah said. Back in Oklahoma. His friend in the sheriff's department made it disappear. This isn't Oklahoma, and Judge Morrison, who'll hear this case, is a former prosecutor who specialized in domestic violence. She doesn't tolerate abusers. Rachel's smile was sharp. Trust me, David's not going to charm his way out of this one. Second, Amanda continued, we're filing for emergency custody. Right now, legally, David has equal parental rights. We need to change that immediately. We'll argue that he's a danger to the children based on the physical abuse, the threats, and the sabotage of your vehicle. Can we prove the vehicle sabotage? Sarah asked. Tommy documented it with photos and a written statement. We also have his credentials as a mechanic and medic. That'll hold weight. Rachel flipped through papers. Third, we're getting you divorced. Fast. Arizona allows for expedited proceedings in cases involving domestic violence. We can have you legally separated from David within 60 days. Sarah felt dizzy. That fast? That fast. But Sarah, you need to understand something. This is going to get ugly. David's going to fight back. He's going to hire a lawyer. He's going to try to paint you as an unfit mother. He's going to drag every mistake you've ever made into public record. Rachel's voice softened. Can you handle that? I don't know, but I have to try. That's the right answer. Rachel stood. Amanda and I are going to get started on the paperwork. You're going to sit down with Tommy and document every injury, every incident, every threat you can remember. Dates, Times, witnesses if there were any. Everything.
My sister, Sarah said suddenly. Jessica. She knows some of it. She begged me to leave, but I was too scared. We'll contact her today, Amanda promised. Her testimony will be crucial.
After the lawyers left to file papers at the courthouse, Sarah spent 3 hours with Tommy, going through every scar on her body, every memory she'd tried to bury. He photographed the faded marks on her arm, the crooked finger that had healed wrong after David broke it, the small bald spot where he'd ripped out her hair during a fight 2 years ago.
You're doing great, Tommy said quietly as he worked. I know this is hard. I feel like I'm betraying him, Sarah admitted, then immediately felt stupid. I know that's crazy. I know he deserves this.
But I spent 5 years protecting him, making excuses for him, hiding what he did. This feels like you're breaking the rules he programmed into you. Tommy set down his camera.
Sarah, that's trauma bonding. It's a survival mechanism. Your brain learned that protecting David kept you safe. Now you have to retrain it to understand that protecting yourself keeps you safe. How long does that take? Different for everyone. But you're already doing it. You left. You asked for help. You're building a case against him. Those are all huge steps.
Lucas burst into the medical building, Maria close behind looking apologetic.
Mama! Mama, there's a man at the gate! Sarah's blood turned to ice. What man? I don't know, Maria said, her voice tight. Didn't recognize him. He's asking to speak to Sarah Mitchell. Says he's family.
Tommy was already moving, pressing a button on the wall that sent an alert through the compound. Within seconds, Jack appeared with Razor and Viper.
Everyone stays inside, Jack ordered. Sarah, you and the kids go to the safe room. Maria, you're with them. Tommy, Viper, you're with me. Razor, man the cameras.
What's a safe room?
Lucas asked, his voice small and scared.
It's like a super special hideout, Maria said brightly, taking his hand.
Come on, Mijo, I'll show you.
Sarah wanted to see who was at the gate, wanted to know if it was David, if this was finally the confrontation she'd been dreading. But she let Maria lead her and the twins to a reinforced room in the main building with thick walls and a security monitor.
Is it Daddy? Lily whispered. Did Daddy find us?
Sarah's heart shattered. Her daughter was 3 years old and already knew to be afraid of her own father.
I don't know, baby, but we're safe here. Jack's going to make sure of it.
Through the security monitor, Sarah watched Jack approach the gate.
The man standing there was in his 50s, heavy-set, wearing civilian clothes but standing with military bearing. Not David. Relief and confusion warred in Sarah's chest. Jack's voice came through the speaker. "Can I help you?"
"I'm looking for Sarah Mitchell. I'm her father, Robert Hayes." Sarah stopped breathing. Her father. Her father who'd kicked her out when she got pregnant at 19, who'd told her she was a disgrace to the family, who she hadn't spoken to in over 10 years.
"Sarah doesn't want to see you," Jack said flatly.
I know I don't deserve." Robert's voice cracked. "Please, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. 5 minutes to tell her I was wrong."
Jack looked directly at the camera. "Sarah, it's your call. You want me to send him away?"
Sarah's mind raced. Her father, here, now, in the middle of everything else falling apart. It felt like the universe was testing her, seeing how much stress she could take before she shattered completely.
"Let him in,"
she heard herself say. "But Jack stays with him, and the kids stay here with Maria." "You sure about this?" Maria asked. "No, but I need to hear what he has to say." 5 minutes later, Sarah stood in Jack's office, facing the man who'd disowned her over a decade ago. Robert Hayes looked older, grayer,
diminished somehow. His eyes were red-rimmed, and his hands shook as he clutched a baseball cap.
"Sarah," he breathed. "God, you look just like your mother."
How did you find me?
Sarah's voice was ice. "Jessica. She called me 3 days ago. Told me you'd left David, that you were in danger, that you needed help." Robert took a step forward, and Jack immediately moved between them. "I know I have no right to be here. I know I was a terrible father. But Sarah, please, let me help you now."
Help me?
Sarah's laugh was bitter.
"Where were you when I was pregnant and homeless? Where were you when I married a man who beat me? Where were you when your grandchildren were born?" "I was wrong." Robert's voice broke. "I was so wrong, Sarah. I was angry and stubborn and stupid. Your mother, she never forgave me. She left me 5 years ago because she couldn't stand what I'd done to you. I've spent every day since then regretting it."
Good.
The word came out harsh.
You should regret it.
"I do, and I know I can't fix it. But Jessica told me what David did to you. What he did to Lucas." Robert's hands clenched. "I'm retired Air Force, 30 years. I've got connections, resources, and I've got a lawyer on retainer. If you'll let me, I want to help you destroy him." Sarah stared at her father. Part of her wanted to throw him out, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain she'd felt when he'd abandoned her. But another part, the practical part that had kept her alive this long, recognized an opportunity.
"Why now?" she asked. "Why do you suddenly care?"
"Because Jessica sent me photos." Robert pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "Photos of Lucas's injuries. Photos of your scars. And I realized my grandson looks just like you did at that age. And I thought about someone hurting him the way I hurt you. And I couldn't breathe. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't live with myself." He looked at her with desperate sincerity. "I can't change the past, Sarah. But I can help you now. I can testify about David's character. I can provide financial support for your legal fees. I don't need your money," Sarah interrupted. "I have help. I have people who actually showed up when I needed them, not 10 years too late." "I know. And I'm grateful they did." Robert glanced at Jack. "Thank you for protecting my daughter when I didn't." Jack's expression remained neutral. "That's not for you to thank me for."
Dad,
Sarah said, the words strange in her mouth after so many years.
if you want to help, really help, here's what I need. David has friends in law enforcement in Oklahoma. He has connections. He's going to try to discredit me, to make me look unstable or unfit. Can you counter that?
Robert straightened. "My former CO is now a colonel stationed at Fort Huachuca, 30 miles from here. I can get you military protection if needed. I can also make calls to the FBI if David has been crossing state lines to harass you."
He sabotaged my car.
Robert's jaw tightened. "That's a federal crime if he did it with intent to harm. I can get that investigated properly." Sarah looked at Jack.
What do you think?
"I think," Jack said carefully, "that every resource helps. But Sarah, you don't owe this man anything. If you want him involved, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. This is your decision." Sarah studied her father. He looked broken, remorseful, desperate for redemption. She didn't trust him, didn't forgive him. But she also wasn't stupid enough to turn down help when her children's lives were at stake.
You can help, she said finally, but on my terms. You don't get to see the kids until I'm ready.
You don't get to make decisions. You provide resources and testimony, and that's it. Understood? Understood. Robert's relief was palpable. Thank you, Sarah. I won't let you down. You already did, Sarah said quietly. This is your chance to do better. After Robert left with a promise to return with his lawyer the following day, Sarah collapsed into a chair. Jack handed her a bottle of water. You handled that well, he said. I feel like I'm drowning, Sarah admitted. Everything's happening so fast. The lawyers, the protection orders, now my father shows up. I can't keep track of it all. You don't have to keep track. That's what we're here for. Jack sat down across from her. Sarah, I know this is overwhelming, but all of this, the legal work, the security measures, your father's help, it's all building a wall between you and David. The higher we build it, the safer you are. What if it's not high enough? Then we build it higher. A knock at the door interrupted them. Razor stuck his head in, his expression grim. Jack, we've got a problem. That truck Maria saw yesterday just passed by again, slowed down at the gate, took photos, then drove off. Did you get the plates? Partial, already running them. Razor's eyes flicked to Sarah. But I got a look at the driver. White male, mid-30s, brown hair, goatee. Ring any bells? Sarah's stomach dropped. David. That's David. Jack stood immediately. Razor, double the perimeter watch. I want eyes on every approach to this compound 24/7. Nobody gets within 100 yards without us knowing about it. What about going to the police? Sarah asked. We will. But Sarah, you need to understand, he hasn't technically done anything illegal yet. Driving on a public road isn't a crime. Taking photos of a property from outside the fence isn't a crime. Jack's voice was gentle but firm. Until he threatens you directly or violates a protection order, there's not much they can do. So we just wait for him to attack? No. We prepare. We document. And we make damn sure that when he does make his move, we're ready. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to every sound, jumping at every creak of the house settling, every distant motorcycle engine, every gust of wind. Around midnight, she gave up and walked to the window. The compound was lit by security lights now, casting long shadows across the courtyard. She could see two figures patrolling the perimeter, Viper and another member she didn't know well. Protecting her. Protecting her children. These strangers who'd become family. A soft knock made her spin around. Jack stood at the door, which she'd forgotten to lock. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. Every time I close my eyes, I see David's face. Jack came in, leaving the door open, propriety maintained. Want to know what helped me when I was dealing with PTSD nightmares? What? Remember that the man in your nightmares isn't here. He's miles away, probably in some motel, probably planning his next move. But you're here, in a safe place, with people who won't let him touch you. Jack's voice was low, soothing. The fear is real, but the threat isn't imminent. You have time to breathe. I don't know how to breathe anymore without fear. Then we'll teach you. Maria does yoga every morning at 6. Viper teaches self-defense at noon. I've got a punching bag in the garage if you need to hit something. Jack smiled slightly. We've all been where you are, Sarah. We know how to survive it. What if I can't? What if I'm not strong enough? You walked 6 miles in the desert, carrying your children to keep them safe. You asked a complete stranger for help when pride would have been easier. You left everything you knew to protect your kids. Jack met her eyes. Sarah, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You just don't know it yet. His words settled over her like a blanket, not removing the fear, but making it bearable.
Thank you, she whispered. For everything.
Get some sleep. Tomorrow, Rachel's bringing the protection order. That's step 1. After Jack left, Sarah checked on the twins one more time. They were tangled together in sleep, Lucas's arm thrown over Lily's shoulder, both of them breathing softly. Peaceful. Safe. Sarah made a decision then. Whatever it took, however long it took, she would keep them this way. She would build a life where they never had to be afraid again. Where they could grow up knowing that love didn't come with fists, that family meant protection, not terror. David Mitchell had taken 5 years of her life. He wouldn't get another day. She walked back to her room, locked the door, and for the first time since arriving, slept without nightmares. But outside, on the dark highway 3 miles away, David sat in his truck with a bottle of whiskey and a hunting rifle. He'd found them. Finally found them. And tomorrow, he'd remind his wife exactly who she belonged to. The compound thought they were ready. They had no idea what was coming. The alarm shrieked through the compound at 4:30 in the morning, ripping Sarah from the first dreamless sleep she'd had in weeks. Her body moved on instinct, stumbling to the twins' room before her brain fully processed what was happening. Lily and Lucas were already awake, crying, confused by the noise and the flashing red lights outside their window.
"It's okay, babies, it's okay," Sarah lied, scooping them both up, even though they were getting too big for it. Her back screamed in protest, but fear made her strong.
We're going to play the hideout game, remember? Like Maria showed you? I don't want to play, Lucas sobbed. I'm scared. I know, baby, but...
The door burst open, and Maria was there, already dressed, her face grim.
Safe room, now. Don't ask questions.
They ran. Sarah's bare feet slapped against cold concrete as they crossed the courtyard. Around them, the compound had erupted into controlled chaos. Members emerged from buildings carrying weapons. Not guns, Sarah noticed with some relief, but baseball bats and tire irons, and one massive wrench that Razor wielded like a club. The safe room door was already open. Maria shoved them inside, where Rosa waited with 2 other women Sarah had only met once. The door slammed shut with a heavy metallic thunk, and bolts slid into place.
"What's happening?" Sarah demanded, still holding both children who refused to be put down.
Someone tried to breach the north fence,
Rosa said, her voice steady but her hands shaking as she checked the security monitor.
Cut the wire and tried to climb through. Razor caught him on the cameras. Is it? We don't know yet.
Rosa's eyes stayed on the screen.
Jack and Tommy went to investigate. They'll call when it's clear.
Sarah set the twins down on a small couch, then paced the length of the small room like a caged animal. Through the monitor, she could see flashlight beams sweeping across the property, shadows moving, voices calling to each other, but the sound was off, so she couldn't hear what they were saying.
Mama, I need to pee,
Lily whispered. There was a small bathroom in the corner. Sarah took her, and while Lily was in there, her own stomach rebelled. She barely made it to the toilet before she vomited. 5 years of terror and 2 days of relative peace colliding in her gut.
Mama?
Lily's small voice from outside the bathroom door broke her.
Are you sick? I'm fine, baby. Just give me a second.
She wasn't fine. She was falling apart. Because if David had found them, if he'd actually tried to break in, then nowhere was safe. Not this compound, not Maria's protection, not Jack's promises. David would keep coming and coming and coming until... Her phone buzzed. Jack's number. It's not him, Jack said before she could speak. It's some kid, maybe 19, drunk off his ass. Says he was trying to take a shortcut through our property to get to his girlfriend's house. Sheriff's on the way to pick him up.
Relief made Sarah's legs buckle. She slid down the bathroom wall to sit on the cold tile floor.
You're sure? You're absolutely sure it's not?
I'm sure. Kid's got ID. The sheriff knows his family. This was just bad timing and stupidity, not an attack.
Jack's voice softened. But Sarah, we're not taking chances. I'm keeping double patrols for the rest of the week. And tomorrow, we're moving you and the kids to one of the inner buildings. Safer position. Better sightlines.
Okay. Okay, yes, whatever you think is best.
You did good tonight. Got the kids to safety exactly like we practiced. I'm proud of you. The words shouldn't have mattered so much, but they did. They mattered more than Sarah wanted to admit. After the all clear sounded, Sarah carried the twins back to the guest house. Both had fallen asleep in the safe room, exhausted by fear and adrenaline. She tucked them in and sat between their beds, watching them breathe, promising herself and God and anyone listening that she would die before she let David hurt them again. Dawn came gray and cold. Sarah gave up on sleep and made coffee with shaking hands. Around 6, Maria knocked and let herself in with a bag of fresh pastries.
Thought you could use breakfast,
Maria said, then took one look at Sarah's face and set down the bag.
Ay, mija, come here.
Sarah fell into her arms and cried. Not the silent tears she'd learned to master during her marriage, but loud, gasping sobs that felt like they were tearing her apart from the inside.
I can't do this,
she choked out.
I thought I could, but I can't. Every sound makes me jump. Every car that drives by makes me think it's him. I can't live like this, Maria. I can't make my children live like this.
So we fight, Maria said simply.
We stop running, and we fight. How? He's their father. He has rights. And he's not going to stop until we make him stop.
Maria pulled back, gripping Sarah's shoulders.
Today, Rachel brings the protection order. Tomorrow, your father brings his military contacts. Next week, we go to court and we take his rights away.
Step by step, we build the case that destroys him.
What if it's not enough?
Then we do what soldiers do. We hold the line until reinforcements arrive. Maria's eyes were fierce.
You're not alone, Sarah. You've never been alone. Not since you walked into that diner and asked for help. You just have to trust that we've got you.
Trust. Such a small word for such an impossible concept. But Sarah nodded anyway, because what choice did she have? Rachel arrived at 10 with papers that smelled like bureaucracy and hope. Judge Morrison had reviewed the emergency petition and approved a temporary protection order effective immediately. David Mitchell was now legally barred from coming within 500 feet of Sarah, Lily, or Lucas. Violation meant immediate arrest.
How do we enforce it? Sarah asked. How does he even know it exists? Sheriff's Department is serving him today, Rachel explained. We tracked him to a motel outside Tucson. 2 deputies are on their way there now.
Sarah's blood chilled.
He's that close?
He was, but after he's served, if he comes anywhere near this compound or you, he's going to jail. No questions, no negotiations. Rachel's smile was sharp. David picked the wrong state to stalk his ex-wife in. Arizona doesn't play games with domestic violence.
What about custody?
Sarah's voice was barely audible.
Can he still?
Emergency custody hearing is scheduled for Friday. That's 3 days from now. Judge Morrison is expediting it. Amanda pulled out another file. We've got Tommy's medical documentation, photos of the sabotaged car, witness statements from everyone here, and your father's testimony lined up. Plus, and this is the big one, Jessica agreed to testify. Sarah's head snapped up.
She did? She did. She's flying in tomorrow. Says she's been waiting 5 years for you to finally let her help you. Amanda's expression softened. Sarah, your sister loves you. She never stopped loving you, even when David cut off all contact. The words hit Sarah like a fist to the chest. Jessica. Her baby sister, who she'd protected from their father's temper, who she'd helped raise when their mother worked double shifts, who she'd pushed away because David said she was a bad influence. Jessica had never given up on her. I need to call her, Sarah said, standing abruptly. I need to. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Her hands froze. Don't answer it, Rachel said sharply. It could be David. He doesn't have this number. I got a new phone when I left. Answer it on speaker, Jack said from the doorway. When had he come in? We're all witnesses if he threatens you. Sarah pressed the button with shaking fingers. Hello? Mrs. Mitchell? An unfamiliar male voice, professional, careful. This is Deputy Frank Garcia with the Pima County Sheriff's Office. I'm calling to inform you that we attempted to serve your husband, David Mitchell, with a protection order this morning. Attempted? Sarah's voice cracked. He's not at the motel anymore. Checked out at 6 a.m., approximately 30 minutes before we arrived. The clerk says he was asking questions about Desert Riders Motorcycle Club and its location. The room went silent. Everyone stared at the phone like it was a bomb about to explode. Deputy, Jack said, his voice steel. This is Jack Malone. I'm head of security here. Are you telling me we have an active threat? I'm telling you to be vigilant. We've issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, for Mitchell's vehicle. If he comes anywhere near that property, you call 911 immediately. Don't engage, don't confront, just call. After the deputy hung up, the adults exchanged looks heavy with meaning. He knows where we are, Sarah whispered. He knows exactly where we are. And now he knows the police are looking for him. He's going to make a mistake, Jack interrupted. He's angry, he's cornered, and he thinks he's smarter than everyone else. That makes him predictable. How is any of this predictable? Because guys like David follow a pattern. First, they try intimidation. When that doesn't work, they escalate to direct confrontation. He's going to show up here, Sarah. Probably today, definitely before the custody hearing. Jack's expression was grim. And when he does, we'll be ready. I don't want anyone getting hurt because of me. Too late. Viper spoke from the corner where she'd been standing silent. You're family now. That means your fights are our fights. And trust me, sweetheart, we've handled worse than one angry drunk with a god complex. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to grab her kids and run, wanted to go back in time and never marry David in the first place. But none of those options existed. The only path was forward. What do we do? She asked. First, you and the kids move to the main building, like we discussed. Second floor, interior room, no windows. Maria and Rosa will stay with you. Jack pulled out his phone. Second, I'm calling in favors. We're going to have 20 bikers on this property by noon, all of them vets, all of them trained. This compound is about to become a fortress. And third, Rachel added, we document everything. Every attempted contact, every threat, every violation. Because when we walk into that courtroom on Friday, we're going to bury him. By noon, the compound had transformed. Motorcycles lined the entrance, their riders, men and women ranging from their 20s to their 60s, taking up positions around the property. Some Sarah recognized from previous visits, others were strangers with hard eyes and careful hands. Jack introduced them one by one, but Sarah couldn't keep track of the names. Ghost, Hammer, Pixie, Torch, Chains. They sounded like comic book characters,
but they moved like soldiers. Because that's what they were. Soldiers who'd found purpose in protecting people the system had failed.
Mama, why are there so many motorcycles?
Lucas asked, watching from the second-floor window of their new room.
Because Jack has a lot of friends,
Sarah said, pulling him back from the glass.
And they all came to visit today. Is Daddy coming to visit too?
The question made Sarah's heart stop. She knelt to her son's level.
Baby, do you want Daddy to visit?
Lucas's little face scrunched up in thought.
I miss Daddy when he's not angry. But I don't miss him when he's angry. Is that bad? No, sweetheart. That's not bad at all. That's very, very smart.
Lily joined them, her stuffed bunny clutched tight.
Is Daddy the reason everyone's being so careful?
These children were 3 years old and already reading situations like war zones. Sarah wanted to cry. Instead, she pulled them both close.
Daddy made some bad choices, she said carefully. And because he made those choices, we have to be extra safe for a while. But all these people, they're making sure we stay safe. Do you understand?
Both children nodded, but their eyes held understanding far beyond their years. That afternoon, while the twins napped under Rosa's watchful eye, Sarah met with her father in Jack's office. Robert Hayes had arrived with a lawyer, a thick file, and a determination that reminded Sarah painfully of her younger self before David had beaten it out of her. "I've been making calls," Robert said, without preamble. "David Mitchell has 3 DUIs that were expunged from his record through a police contact. He's got 2 assault charges that were dropped when the victims mysteriously recanted. And his first wife, the one who disappeared, filed for a restraining order 6 months before she vanished." Sarah's stomach turned.
I knew about his first wife. He told me she left him.
That she was unstable. She wasn't unstable, she was terrified. Robert's lawyer, a thin woman named Catherine, pulled out documents. "I've been in contact with her family. They've been looking for her for 6 years. They're willing to testify that David threatened her life, that she told them she feared he would kill her."
"Did he?" The question came out barely audible. "Did he kill her?" "We don't know. Her body was never found. But the circumstantial evidence is strong enough to at least put doubt in a judge's mind about David's character." Catherine spread the documents across the desk. "Sarah, this is bigger than a custody case now. This is potentially a criminal investigation." "The FBI is already involved," Robert added. "The vehicle sabotage crossed state lines. You left Oklahoma. The car failed in Arizona. That makes it federal. They're building a case, but it takes time."
"I don't have time," Sarah said desperately. "The custody hearing is Friday."
"If the judge orders shared custody, if David gets any access to my children, he won't." Rachel had joined them.
"Not with this evidence. Catherine and I have been coordinating. We're filing a motion to suspend all parental rights pending a criminal investigation. It's aggressive, but given the circumstances, Judge Morrison will likely approve it."
Sarah's head was spinning. Federal investigations, criminal charges, missing first wives? This was supposed to be about protecting her children. How had it spiraled into something so much bigger? "Sarah," her father said quietly, "I know this is overwhelming, but this is good news. This means David can't hide anymore, can't charm his way out, can't use his connections to make problems disappear. We've got him cornered."
"Cornered animals are the most dangerous,"
Sarah whispered. The words had barely left her mouth when gunshots shattered the afternoon quiet. Sarah's body reacted before her mind caught up. She was running, legs pumping, heart exploding, toward the room where her children slept. Behind her, she heard Jack shouting orders, heard boots thundering on stairs,
heard the compound erupting into organized chaos. She burst into the room to find Rosa already there, standing in front of the twins' bed with a baseball bat in her hands. The children were awake, screaming, terrified.
"Stay down," Rosa barked. "Get them in the bathroom, now!"
Sarah grabbed both children and ran for the bathroom, the smallest room, the one with no windows. She crammed all three of them into the space between the toilet and the wall, her body covering theirs.
"Mama, what's happening?" Lily sobbed. "Why is there shooting?" "I don't know, baby, but we're safe here. Rosa won't let anything happen to us."
More shots, closer now. Then silence. Terrible, endless silence. Sarah's phone buzzed. Jack's text. "Stay put. Don't move. Not David. Repeat, not David. Local punks trying to rob us. Scared them off.
Sheriff en route." The relief that flooded Sarah was so intense she thought she might pass out. Not David. Not David. Just bad luck and worse timing. But her body wouldn't stop shaking. The twins wouldn't stop crying. And some part of Sarah that had been holding herself together through sheer force of will finally cracked.
"I can't do this," she gasped. I can't.
Rosa was there, kneeling beside her, pulling all three of them into a fierce hug.
"Yes, you can. You already are. One breath at a time, Mija. One breath at a time."
By the time the sheriff left, having arrested 3 teenagers who'd thought the motorcycle club would be an easy target, it was nearly evening. The twins had exhausted themselves crying and fallen into fitful sleep. Sarah sat beside their bed, unable to move, unable to think, unable to do anything but stare at the wall. Jack found her there an hour later. "Hey," he said softly. "How are you holding up?"
"I don't know."
Sarah's voice sounded distant, disconnected. "I thought it was him. For those first few seconds, I thought David had finally come for us."
"I know. I'm sorry you had to go through that."
"Those kids, the ones who tried to rob you, they're barely older than I was when I got pregnant with the twins. They could have been killed today."
But they weren't. We scared them, called the cops, and they learned a valuable lesson about picking the wrong target. Jack sat down beside her. "Sarah, I need you to hear me. This wasn't David. But David is still out there, and he's running out of options. The next few days are going to be the most dangerous. Can you hold on a little longer?" Sarah looked at her sleeping children. Lucas's lip still bore a faint scar from where David had hit him. Lily's small body was curled into a defensive ball, even in sleep.
"I don't have a choice," she said. "They need me to be strong."
"They need you to survive. There's a difference."
Jack's hand hovered near hers, not touching but offering.
"And you're doing that. You're surviving. That's enough." That night, Sarah lay awake again, but this time not alone. Maria had moved a cot into the room and refused to leave. Rosa checked on them every hour. Through the window, which now had bars, installed in under 2 hours by Razor and Tommy, Sarah could see the glow of cigarettes as members took their patrol shifts. An army of broken people protecting other broken people. It shouldn't work. By all logic, it should fall apart. But it didn't. It held. And tomorrow, Sarah would hold too. She would face her sister, face the lawyers, face the reality that her husband was a monster who might have killed his first wife. She would hold for 3 more days until the custody hearing, and then she would watch as the legal system finally did what it was supposed to do. Protect the innocent, punish the guilty, and give her children a chance at the childhood they deserved.
Jessica arrived at dawn driving a rental car and carrying a suitcase she didn't bother to unpack. She took one look at Sarah standing in the compound courtyard and started crying.
"Jess," Sarah breathed, and then they were hugging. 5 years of separation collapsing into desperate relief.
"You look terrible," Jessica said through tears, "and I'm so glad you're alive. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I pushed you away. David said you were trying to ruin our marriage, and I believed him, and stop. I don't care about that. I care that you're here, and you're safe, and those babies are safe."
Jessica pulled back, gripping Sarah's shoulders.
"Tell me what you need. Anything. I'll do it." "I need you to tell the judge the truth about what you saw, what you knew."
Jessica's jaw tightened. "Oh, I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to make sure that bastard never sees daylight again." Over breakfast, Jessica laid out 5 years of evidence Sarah hadn't known existed.
Text messages from Sarah that had grown increasingly sporadic and fearful. Photos Jessica had secretly taken during one visit when she'd noticed bruises on Sarah's arms. A recording of a phone call where David had screamed at Sarah in the background, calling her worthless, threatening to take the children away if she ever spoke to Jessica again.
"You recorded him?"
Sarah stared at her sister.
"I recorded everything. Every time you called me crying, every time I heard him yelling, every weird excuse you made for canceled visits. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how to help you until you were ready."
Jessica's voice cracked.
"And I'm sorry it took this long. I should have done more. You did everything you could. I was the one who shut you out. Because he manipulated you into it. That's what abusers do."
Jessica squeezed her hand.
"But we're going to stop him now. Together."
The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation.
Rachel and Catherine drilled Sarah on her testimony, running through every possible question the judge might ask, every trap David's lawyer might set. Her father brought in a retired FBI profiler who reviewed David's history and confirmed what Sarah already knew in her bones. David fit the profile of a narcissistic abuser with escalating violent tendencies. The missing first wife wasn't random. It was a pattern. Thursday night, the night before the custody hearing, Sarah couldn't eat. Her stomach churned with anxiety and fear, and a strange, unfamiliar sensation she finally recognized as hope. Jack found her sitting outside the main building, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of orange and gold. "Big day tomorrow," he said, settling beside her.
"I'm terrified."
"Good. Means you're taking it seriously." Jack handed her a bottle of water. "But Sarah, I want you to remember something. That courtroom tomorrow, you're not alone in there. Rachel's going to be with you. Your sister's going to be there. Your father. Maria's coming. Tommy. Half this compound is showing up to support you.
David's going to be there too."
And he'll be sitting across the room, held back by bailiffs unable to touch you. He's lost his power, Sarah. He just doesn't know it yet." Sarah wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that tomorrow would end with her children safe, her freedom secured, her nightmare finally over. But 5 years of conditioning made hope feel dangerous.
"What if the judge doesn't believe me? What if David's lawyer convinces her that I'm the unstable one, that I kidnapped the kids?"
Then we appeal, and we fight harder. But Sarah, that's not going to happen. You've got evidence. You've got witnesses. You've got the truth. Jack's voice was steady, certain. And the truth always wins. Eventually.
"Does it? Because David's been lying for 5 years and winning."
He was winning. Past tense. But you changed the rules when you left. You changed them again when you asked for help. And tomorrow, you're going to change them one final time. Jack stood, offering his hand. "Come on,
Rosa made your favorite dinner. You need to eat something. Sarah took his hand and let him pull her up. His grip was warm, calloused, solid. Reliable in a way she'd forgotten men could be.
Jack, after tomorrow, after all this is over, what happens to us? To me and the kids? Do we stay here, or?
That's up to you. But Sarah, you've always got a home here, for as long as you want it. He smiled. We're family now. That doesn't have an expiration date. Family. The word had meant pain for so long, but here, in this compound full of scarred veterans and broken survivors, it meant something different. It meant safety, belonging, home. Friday morning arrived cold and clear. Sarah dressed in the conservative outfit Rachel had insisted on, a navy blue dress that covered her arms and fell below her knees, low heels, minimal makeup. She looked like someone's elementary school teacher. Harmless, trustworthy, exactly what Rachel wanted the judge to see. The twins sensed the tension. They clung to Sarah as she tried to explain where she was going.
I have to talk to a judge about some grown-up stuff, she said, kneeling to their level. But Maria's going to stay with you all day, and when I come back, we're going to have a special dinner, okay? Is the judge going to make us go back to Daddy? Lily asked, her voice small. Sarah's heart shattered. No, baby. The judge is going to make sure you're safe. That's her job. What if she doesn't do her job good? Lucas asked.
Children should never have to ask questions like that. Should never have to doubt that adults would protect them. Sarah pulled both twins into a fierce hug.
Then I'll do my job as your mama and keep you safe anyway. I promise.
Maria appeared in the doorway, her face gentle.
Time to go, mija. The lawyers are waiting.
Sarah kissed her children one more time, then forced herself to walk away. Every step felt like tearing off a piece of her heart, but she kept moving, kept breathing, kept putting one foot in front of the other. The courthouse was a sprawling concrete building that smelled like old paper and fear. Rachel met her at the entrance with Amanda and Catherine. Her father was already inside. Jessica waited by the courtroom doors, flanked by Tommy and Viper, who'd come for moral support.
He's already here, Jessica warned. With his lawyer. They're in the courtroom.
Sarah's legs went weak. I can't. Yes, you can. Rachel's voice was firm. Look at me, Sarah. You've survived 5 years of hell. You've protected your children against impossible odds. You've built a case that's going to destroy him. 3 hours. That's all you need to do. Hold it together for 3 hours. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. They walked into the courtroom, and Sarah's eyes immediately found David. He sat at the defendant's table wearing a suit she recognized, his hair neatly trimmed, his face arranged in an expression of wounded innocence. When he saw her, his mouth curved into a smile that made her blood freeze.
Don't look at him, Rachel murmured. He's trying to intimidate you. Don't give him the satisfaction.
Sarah forced her eyes forward as they took their seats. Judge Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She surveyed the courtroom with the air of someone who'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. This is an emergency custody hearing in the matter of Mitchell versus Mitchell, the judge began. I've reviewed the preliminary filings. Ms. Chen, you may present your opening statement. Rachel stood, and her voice rang clear and confident through the courtroom. She laid out the case methodically. The years of abuse, the escalating violence, the incident with Lucas that had finally driven Sarah to flee. She presented Tommy's medical documentation, photos of the sabotaged car,
witness statements from the compound members. She painted a picture of a dangerous man who'd used his charm and connections to evade consequences while terrorizing his family. David's lawyer, a slick man named Henderson, countered with a story of a devoted father wrongfully separated from his children by an unstable wife who'd fallen under the influence of a motorcycle gang. He claimed Sarah had mental health issues, that she'd always been paranoid, that David had spent 5 years trying to help her get treatment. Sarah listened to him twist the truth and felt rage building in her chest. This was what David did. This was how he won. He lied so smoothly, so convincingly, that people believed him. But then Rachel called her first witness. Jessica took the stand and told the judge about the bruises, the fearful phone calls, the way David had systematically isolated Sarah from everyone who loved her. She played the audio recording of David's screaming threats, his voice clear and vicious and absolutely damning. Henderson objected. The judge overruled him. Tommy testified next, walking the judge through his medical findings with professional precision. Then Catherine presented evidence about David's expunged DUIs, his dropped assault charges, and the restraining order filed by his first wife before she disappeared. "Objection!" Henderson was on his feet. "The disappearance of Mr. Mitchell's first wife was investigated and closed. There's no evidence of wrongdoing." "There's also no evidence she's alive," Catherine countered. "And the pattern of behavior is remarkably similar to what Sarah experienced." Judge Morrison's expression had grown increasingly grim. "I'll allow it. Continue." The morning stretched into afternoon. Sarah's father testified about the military resources he'd provided, the federal investigation into the vehicle sabotage. Maria and Rosa described Sarah's condition when she'd arrived at the compound: malnourished, terrified, desperate. Jack spoke about the security measures they'd implemented, David's surveillance of the property, the way he'd fled when police tried to serve the protection order. Through it all, David sat perfectly still, his face a mask of wounded dignity. But Sarah saw the signs others might miss. The way his jaw clenched when Jessica played the recording, the white-knuckle grip on the table when Tommy described Lucas's injuries, the flash of pure rage in his eyes when Jack testified. He was losing control, and David Mitchell without control was a ticking bomb. Finally, Rachel called Sarah to the stand. Sarah's legs shook as she walked to the witness box. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, and for the first time in 5 years, she was finally going to do exactly that. Rachel guided her through her testimony with careful questions. Sarah described the early days of her marriage, the slow escalation of David's control, the first time he hit her. She talked about living in constant fear, about hiding money in the freezer for years, about the morning she'd finally fled. "Ms. Mitchell," Rachel said gently, "can you tell the court what happened the day you decided to leave?" Sarah took a breath. "David hit our son Lucas across the face for spilling juice. Lucas was 3 years old. He flew across the room and hit the wall. His lip split open. There was blood everywhere." Her voice broke, but she pushed through. "And David looked at me and said, 'Clean him up, and if you ever tell anyone about this, I'll kill you and take the kids somewhere you'll never find them.'" That's when I knew if I didn't leave right then, one day he was going to kill one of us. The courtroom was dead silent. Henderson stood for cross-examination, and Sarah braced herself. "Ms. Mitchell, you claim my client abused you, yet you have no police reports, no hospital records, no contemporaneous documentation of these alleged incidents. Isn't that convenient?" "I was too afraid to report it. He has friends in law enforcement. The one time I tried, the report disappeared." "Or perhaps these incidents never happened at all. Perhaps you're fabricating this entire story to gain custody." "Objection!" Rachel was on her feet. "Counsel is badgering the witness.
I'm simply pointing out inconsistencies, Your Honor. Judge Morrison's eyes narrowed. Mr. Henderson, I suggest you tread carefully. Continue, but watch your tone. Henderson shifted tactics. Ms. Mitchell, you're currently living at a motorcycle club compound,
A place where armed men patrol the property, and bar fights apparently break out regularly. You consider this a suitable environment for children?
Those men saved my life, Sarah said firmly. They gave me safety when I had nowhere else to go. They fed my children when we were starving. And yes, I consider that far more suitable than a home where their father would hit them. Allegedly hit them. You have no proof. I have his healing injuries. I have my scars. I have witnesses who saw what David did to me. Sarah leaned forward. And I have the courage to finally tell the truth. That's more proof than you'll ever be able to explain away. Henderson's face reddened. He tried several more angles of attack, but Sarah held firm. 5 years of surviving David had taught her how to weather verbal assaults. She wasn't the broken woman who'd walked 6 miles through the desert anymore. She was someone who'd found her strength. Finally, Henderson sat down.
Judge Morrison called a 15-minute recess before closing arguments. Sarah stumbled out of the witness box on shaking legs. Jessica caught her, pulling her into a tight hug.
You were amazing, her sister whispered. You were so strong. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's the adrenaline. Come on, let's get you some water. In the bathroom, Sarah splashed cold water on her face and tried to steady her breathing. She'd done it. She'd testified. She told the truth. Now it was up to Judge Morrison. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked harder, older. But there was something else, too. Something in her eyes that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. Hope. When they returned to the courtroom, Rachel delivered her closing argument with the precision of a surgeon.
She tied together all the evidence, all the testimony, all the documentation, into a picture so damning that even David's lawyer seemed to deflate. Henderson gave his own closing, but it rang hollow. He claimed Sarah was mentally unstable, but couldn't explain the corroborating testimony. He claimed David was a loving father, but couldn't refute the medical evidence. He claimed Sarah had kidnapped the children, but couldn't address the fact that she'd fled to protect them from documented violence. Judge Morrison listened to both arguments with an impassive face. Then she sat back and addressed the courtroom. I've presided over family court for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of custody cases, and I've learned to recognize certain patterns. Her gaze fixed on David. Mr. Mitchell, your testimony today was polished, practiced. You knew exactly what to say, how to present yourself, how to appear sympathetic. But what you don't understand is that I've heard it all before. From men just like you. Men who charm and manipulate and convince everyone around them that they're the victims. David's face went white. Ms. Mitchell, on the other hand, was raw, honest, terrified. She couldn't hide her pain because she wasn't trying to, and that, combined with the substantial evidence presented by her counsel, tells me everything I need to know about the truth of this situation. Judge Morrison picked up her gavel. I'm issuing an order of full custody to Sarah Mitchell, effective immediately. Mr. Mitchell, your parental rights are suspended pending the outcome of the criminal investigation into your conduct. You are prohibited from any contact with the children or their mother. Any violation will result in immediate arrest and additional charges. The gavel came down with a crack that echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what had just happened. She'd won. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, I'm ordering a full investigation into the disappearance of your first wife.
The circumstantial evidence presented today warrants serious scrutiny. She looked at David with cold contempt.
Mr. Mitchell, you're very fortunate you're not being arrested right now. I suggest you retain criminal counsel and cooperate fully with authorities. This court is adjourned.
David exploded out of his chair. You can't do this. Those are my children. My children. She stole them from me, and you're rewarding her for it. Bailiffs moved in immediately, restraining him as he continued to shout. Sarah watched, frozen, as the mask finally shattered completely. This was the David she knew. Angry, entitled, dangerous. You think this is over? David screamed at her as the bailiffs dragged him toward the door. You think you've won? I'll find you, Sarah. I'll find you and those kids, and I'll make you pay for this. You hear me? I'll make you. The door slammed shut, cutting off his threats. Sarah stood there, shaking, as the reality crashed over her. Full custody, suspended parental rights, no contact. She'd actually won. Jessica was crying. Rachel was smiling. Her father was gripping her shoulder with shaking hands. And Sarah felt nothing. Nothing but a vast, echoing emptiness where fear had lived for so long. Then it hit her. She was free. The tears came then, hot and fierce and cleansing. She collapsed into Jessica's arms and sobbed, 5 years of terror pouring out of her in waves. Around her, people were talking, congratulating her, making plans. But all Sarah could process was that simple, impossible truth. She was free. Outside the courthouse, the desert riders waited. A wall of leather and steel and protective fury. When Sarah emerged with the twins, Maria had brought them for the verdict. They erupted in cheers.
Lucas and Lily looked confused by the celebration, but they smiled anyway, feeding off the joy around them.
Jack approached, his expression careful. How are you?
I don't know, Sarah admitted. I don't know what I feel.
That's normal. You've been in survival mode so long, your body doesn't know how to process safety yet. He crouched to the twins' level. Hey guys, want to know a secret? Your mama's a superhero. She just won the biggest fight of her life.
Did she beat up the bad guy? Lucas asked, eyes wide.
Something like that. That night, the compound threw a celebration. Someone produced a case of beer, Rosa made enough food to feed an army, and music blasted from speakers someone had rigged up in the courtyard. The twins ran wild with the other children present, high on sugar and freedom and the absence of fear. Sarah sat apart from the celebration, watching, processing, trying to understand that her life had fundamentally changed in the span of a single day.
Maria found her in the quiet.
You should be celebrating, Mika.
I am. I just need a minute to absorb it. Take all the time you need. But Sarah, I want you to know something. Maria sat beside her. When I first came here, I couldn't sleep for 3 months. Every noise made me jump. Every man who raised his voice sent me into panic attacks. I thought I'd never feel normal again. When did it get better? Gradually. One day at a time. One small victory at a time. And eventually, I woke up and realized I'd made it through an entire week without being afraid. Maria smiled. You'll get there too. It just takes time. What if David doesn't give up? What if he violates the order and comes after us anyway? Then we'll deal with it. Together. That's what family does. The word still felt strange, foreign. But Sarah was beginning to understand it. Family wasn't blood. It wasn't obligation. It was choice. It was the people who showed up when everything fell apart, and helped you put the pieces back together. Later, after the celebration wound down and the twins were asleep, Sarah found Jack in the garage. He was working on a bike, his hands covered in grease, his focus absolute.
"Thought you'd be celebrating," she said.
"This is how I celebrate. Something about working with my hands helps me process big emotions." He set down his wrench. "How are you holding up?"
"I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For someone to call and say there was a mistake, that the judge changed her mind, that David gets another chance."
"That's not going to happen, Sarah. You won. Completely. Totally. Without question."
"Then why don't I feel like I won?"
Jack was quiet for a long moment. "Because you've spent 5 years believing you deserved what happened to you, and winning means accepting that you never did. That's a hard thing to wrap your head around."
"How did you do it? After everything you went through, how did you learn to believe you deserved good things?"
"I didn't. Not for a long time." Jack's voice was raw. "But then I watched my daughters grow up, and I saw them becoming strong, independent, fearless. And I realized they learned that from me. Not the broken version of me, but the version I became after I got help, after I found this place, after I learned that surviving wasn't the same as living." He stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "Sarah, you survived. You got your kids out. You beat him in court. Now comes the hard part, learning how to live again. Learning what it feels like to wake up without fear, to make choices without second-guessing every move, to exist in a world where you're not constantly waiting for punishment."
"I don't know if I can."
You can, and you will, because those 2 kids in there need to see that it's possible. They need to see their mama choosing joy over fear, building a life instead of just enduring one." Jack smiled. "And you've got time. You've got help. You've got a whole community invested in watching you thrive." Sarah looked at this man who'd shown her more kindness than she deserved, this stranger who'd become family, this biker with the scarred hands and the gentle heart who'd given her back her life.
"Thank you,"
she said, and the words felt inadequate for everything she meant.
"For feeding us that first day, for giving us shelter, for fighting for us when you had no reason to, for believing me when I barely believed myself."
"You don't have to thank me, Sarah. That's what we do here. We show up for each other." He paused. "But you're welcome anyway." 6 months later, Sarah stood in the doorway of her new apartment. Not on the compound. She'd finally felt ready to live independently, but close enough to visit daily. The apartment was small but bright, filled with furniture people had donated, and toys the twins had scattered everywhere. It was messy and chaotic, and absolutely perfect. Lucas and Lily were starting preschool next week at a program Jessica had helped her research. Sarah had a full-time bookkeeping job with a small firm downtown, doing work she was good at, work that mattered. Her father visited every Sunday, slowly rebuilding a relationship neither was sure could be fixed, but both were willing to try. David was in jail, awaiting trial on multiple charges, including the vehicle sabotage, stalking, and, most significantly, the disappearance of his first wife. New evidence had emerged, testimony from people who'd been too afraid to speak before. The case was strong. Rachel thought he'd be convicted. Sarah tried not to think about it too much. Jessica had moved to Arizona permanently, renting an apartment 10 minutes away. They were learning to be sisters again, to trust each other, to build something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. And the Desert Riders remained constant. Jack still called every morning to check in. Maria insisted on weekly dinners. Tommy monitored the twins' development with professional care.
Rosa sent care packages filled with homemade treats. They'd become Sarah's family in every way that mattered. Tonight, they were all coming over for dinner. Sarah's first time hosting in her own space. She was nervous and excited and terrified she'd mess something up. But as she set the table and listened to her children playing in their room, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. The doorbell rang. Jack stood there holding a bottle of wine and a stuffed animal for each twin. "Welcome home," he said. And Sarah realized he was right. This was home. Not the compound, not the apartment, but the life she'd built from nothing. The community she'd found, the safety she'd earned, the freedom she'd fought for. "Come in," she said, smiling. "Everyone's welcome here." As the apartment filled with laughter and conversation and the warmth of people who'd chosen each other as family, Sarah paused in the kitchen and looked around. At Maria teaching Lily to roll tortillas, at Tommy showing Lucas how to stack blocks higher than his head, at Jessica and Rosa debating the best way to make tamales, at Jack setting the table with the careful precision of someone who understood that small rituals mattered. This was what she'd been running toward all along. Not away from danger, but toward something better. Toward people who saw her scars and loved her anyway. Toward a life where her children could grow up knowing that family meant safety, that love didn't hurt, that the world held more kindness than cruelty if you were brave enough to ask for help. Sarah had asked for leftovers from a stranger's plate and received a feast beyond her wildest dreams. She'd asked for help and found a family. She'd asked for safety and discovered her own strength. And now, standing in her own home, surrounded by the people who'd saved her life, Sarah Mitchell finally understood what it meant to be free. Not because someone gave it to her, but because she'd had the courage to take it for herself and refuse to let anyone steal it away again.